Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. This is our Sunday special, first one we've done in quite a while. And what better way to start our Sunday series than with a good old fashioned spoiler cast? And we're going to be talking all about Tales of Arise here on Sunday special number 37. And we brought a friend because what's better than doing a podcast than with having somebody with us? Jordan, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, it's been a while, but yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Just so everybody knows, the first half of the podcast is going to be just general discussion about things in the game. We're going to try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. We'll take a little halfway point break, and then the second half, we're not going to hold back at all. It's going to be all the spoilers, all the things that we've been dying to talk about, all the frustrations maybe we've been feeling and able to vent. But I guess the first thing that we'll just get right into it, buddy, and that is what we've been playing Tales games for a long time. So what was your first Tales experience? We'll kind of set the table that way.
You mean like the first one in my life?
Yeah, like or,
Yeah.
you didn't just start last week, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so my first experience was actually way back on PS1 with Tales of Destiny.
Oh, wow.
I saw it just in I didn't really know anything about, the series. I didn't know about Tales of Fantasia or whatever before that. I just saw it in
Hmm.
a store, whatever. I don't remember whether it was EB Games back then or whatever that store was, and it just looked cool. Like the cover looked cool and everything. And I had the only thing I knew about it is it had combat that was kind of like 2D, like Street Fighter. And at that time, I was playing a lot of Street Fighter and those fighting games, so I thought that was really cool idea. So I just picked it up and I loved it. I thought the sprites were really really cool looking, and just the combat. I had a lot of fun doing all the different moves. Like instead of doing, I mean, of course, I like turn-based combat, but it was just a whole different feel to be like you're in a Street Fighter game and also in an RPG at the same time. So just kind of went from there, and then loved the characters and kept trying to pick up as many Tales games as I could as they came out after that.
And so you've played pretty much all of them since then.
Well, I mean, not the ones that weren't imported over here, but yeah,
Well,
pretty
yeah,
much the ones
yeah.
that, yeah. But yeah, pretty much. Except I missed the still in my backlog is the Tales of Hearts, I guess, which is in my backlog on
Okay.
the Vita, I
On the
guess.
Vita. Yeah. That was a good one. So we're in much the same boat. I didn't pick it up until Symphonia on the GameCube, but I maybe you agree with this sentiment as well as like I think there's two camps, and Arise kind of splits them in half. You've got new or newer players who are just kind of getting into Tales. Maybe they started with PS4 type games. Then you've got older gamers like ourselves who have played a bunch of Tales games, and Arise definitely changed a lot of the formulas. And do you feel like that's correct?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, just I guess some of the I mean, there's not all. I don't know if I want to call it platforming, but sort of platforming that was
Hmm.
introduced in the Tales of Arise. That was a change. That was different. I mean, I'm okay with change as long as it doesn't seem like it's just like change for the sake of change. But I thought it was, it fit into the game. I thought, well, in terms of some of the more, I guess it's not completely open world, but a little more open world than we had before. It kind of fits into that, so I was okay with it.
I agree with that. We knew the changes were coming. They talked about it from day one that Arise was a chance for them to change some series staples and bring some new elements. And I agree with the platforming. I didn't like it that much. It was seemed like it was kind of weird just to get a running jump basically to get to treasure chests on ledges
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. And going up and down ladders. I mean that's pretty staples in JRPGs. That's nothing that new. It was weird falling from super high cliffs and just you're fine. Uh, Nothing.
Well, they have the sound like it hurt, like it hurts or whatever. But I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to really hurt them. So
Did you ever play with like Shion and like she would like ugh and like dust
yeah,
herself off or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah. So that was new. Then there was a bunch of those little type of deals in it. But so what were your first impressions then? We had the demo come out and then the game finally came out. And when you were first getting into it, was it just pure love? Was it I kind of like this, but I don't like this type of deal? Or how was your first general impressions of the game?
I guess when I first started playing it just from the beginning of the story. I mean, you're in an area, you're in Calaglia or whatever it was, and there's a lot of fire and all that kind of stuff. It didn't blow me away at first just because I feel like it looks like sort of anywhere you start out in any Tales game since
Yeah.
pretty much Tales of Symphonia, I guess.
Hmm.
And I feel like where it really blew me away is when it eventually opens up and you get out in the world, and then I was like, oh, this is really beautiful. You know what I mean? And that's different than any other Tales games. They didn't have those type of worlds or that type of, those types of graphics, that type of music. They just didn't really have that before. So then I was pretty blown away by that. But I'll say that's not really a first impression because before you get there, it just felt at first you're in this, kind of,
Hmm.
I'll call it dingy, dingy,
It was not
fiery,
impressive, no.
dingy, fiery, confined area, which I think they did on purpose. I mean, based on what the story was there, but it took it a little bit for it to really, I guess, make an impression on me as something different.
Yeah, and Tales have often got labeled as kind of ugly type
Yes,
games,
yeah, yeah.
and the first thing you notice is how even in that area you can tell how beautiful the game is. Um, they did quite a lot of work on graphics and presentation, and even going like the camera would pan back into like a 3/4 Uncharted type deal, and like your attention will be drawn off to the distance. They did. I liked a lot of those things that they did as far as storytelling, as far as obviously, the graphics from beginning to end are phenomenal. It was not obviously not built for PS5, but PS5 took full advantage of it. PC even more so. I mean, they've got some incredible builds over there, but I know I wasn't blown away either, and that's kind of sad in a way in terms of the overall game, but you couldn't help but be impressed at least. And as you got into those new areas, it did open up. It did have some nice feels to it. What are some of the characters? Obviously, take center stage. Did you feel like having these 6 party members was that a good number for you? Did you feel like it needed to be a few more?
No, I like the amount that there are. For me, I'm the type of person if there's two. I mean, I know there's some people that like love a lot of party members, but I kind of get overwhelmed if there's more, maybe more than six. I start getting overwhelmed. Like, oh, like if there's 10 characters, oh, I forgot to use this character, and now they're getting way behind in their levels, and now I don't know if I want to use this person or that person. I just get overwhelmed with the decision fatigue, I guess. So the 6 characters was perfect for me. I don't know how people in like Suikoden 2 do it with 108. I just start getting too confused when that happens. But yeah, I liked the amount of characters that there were. I liked only having to sub in just because I feel like it reduced the stress for me of having to make those decisions. So
Is like Trails is a bit too much. Yeah.
a little bit, yeah. I mean that definitely got overwhelming for sure.
It is odd how they, just speaking off topic, how they went from so few, and then even in Crossbell, you couldn't even change your lineup, could you? It was just the 4.
uh, yeah, I mean,
Okay, we won't go there.
yeah, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, but I felt like 6 was too few. Usually, Tails is closer to 8, just to get the variety of party members, and sometimes you have people come and go. But they did a good job of. I loved the fact that you didn't have to use. You could use whatever ones you really want to, and then that tag team element allowed you to use their special abilities anytime that you want to. They didn't have to be in the party, even though those abilities were very necessary in battle. So that's the tag team attacks and
And the boost attacks, yeah,
the
those are
boost.
super
Yeah,
cool.
that was pretty cool. So obviously that changed combat quite a bit with those. Did you like all that kind of the over the top? I mean, we've always had the mystic arts work over the top, but these boost attacks as well. Did you like those additions to the battle system?
I I did really like it, and it never really got old for me to watch them for some reason. Like I never felt myself getting annoyed, like I needed to fast forward the animations or something. I just like to sit there and watch them. I mean, I did. I'm sure some people who are like really, really advanced at the game figured it out, but I couldn't figure out necessarily what made which party member pop up on which part of the D-pad. You know what I mean? So I feel like it
Yeah.
felt to me like it was just like random which direction I would see the person's face and then I could select it that way, but where they would pop up on the D-pad, I just didn't understand what was the rhyme or reason behind that. But I did like that. I just thought the attacks themselves were super cool. I never got tired of looking at them.
I assumed it was random. I
Okay.
It just seemed that way, and like I said, maybe the more advanced players could clarify that or not. But it just seemed like no matter what direction I picked, what character I picked, it was always going to be some random thing. I feel like there. I wish there could have been a few more. Like it did seem like you saw the same ones kind of over and over again.
Yeah,
You definitely saw some more than others. Let's put it that way.
that's true. That's true. There was a lot of repetition to it. But sometimes it would get me pumped up and wish I could run around my neighborhood saying what move I wanted to do, and then I would have this huge tornado of fire spin up, and I mean, it does get me kind of pumped up. But yeah, they were kind of a little repetitive. I think the most repetitive thing, actually, I don't know if you remember this, but Law, whenever Law is in your, like, not as a sub member, but he's in your main party, and he'll do his mystic art a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's like the Tenebrous Claw or whatever. He's always like Tenebrous Claw, you know what I mean? And you hear that over and over and over again, and that started to get a little old. But other than that, I liked all the other attacks, I think.
So he was obviously in your main party. He was not in mine. So I didn't see it a lot, but I did see Kasara's a lot, who was in my main party. Hers was way more than any other characters, and I think Shion's was by far the least I saw.
Yeah, Shion was least. He's definitely least. I saw Rinwell's a fair bit, I think, but
Yeah.
yeah, Shion was probably the least. I did replace Law with eventually Kisara and sometimes Dohalim, because I got started getting just annoyed with Law as a fight. I As a character, it's different, I guess, but as a fighter in battle, I just started getting a little annoyed with him. I got tired of hearing the Mystic Art, and I felt like ultimately Kisara started to become more useful to me.
Hmm.
So I kind of just ended up ditching Law like somewhere maybe the 3/4 mark or something. But
So your main party would have been Alphen, Shion, Kasara, and
Rinwell,
Renwell.
yeah,
Okay. So well,
yeah.
there. Great minds think alike, my friend. And that's not just because it wanted to have three ladies in there with our boy, but I just felt like that was the best party. I really did. I was balanced, and you could then have those two subs come off the bench anytime you needed to. For me, that was my best party. Did you play with Alphen all the way through?
I did. I tried a little bit of like, well, first of all, not in battle. I actually played as Rinwell running around most of the time in like the overworld or whatever.
Okay.
But in battle, I played it as Alphen pretty much all the time. I tried some of the other ones a little bit, and I think at that point when I started trying the other ones, I was kind of too far in the game, and it was kind of I didn't feel like really taking the effort to like learn the other ones as much, I guess. So I was enjoying playing with Alpha, and I was like, I'll just keep doing this, and maybe if I decide to come back to it another time, maybe I'll try somebody else. But I thought I heard you say you like to play with Rinwell, right?
Yeah, so in primary because I guess, and maybe I'm in probably in the vast minority here, but I didn't enjoy playing with Alphen. I can't put my finger on why that is because I've always played as a sword fighter in the
Yeah,
Tales games. That's nothing new. But I guess I just didn't something just didn't click for me. But as soon as I got Renwell, I was able to kind of like pull back from the fight and I guess see it more and then be able to micromanage it more and play more of an RPG build rather than more just action heavy. That helped me enjoy the entire game to its fullest, which whatever reason that was, that's how I needed to play the game in order to get more out of it. Because there was certainly to a point I was not enjoying it like I really wanted to, and that changed
okay.
my whole outlook on the entire game.
I
But
remember hearing some of your impressions made it sound like you were not enjoying it for a little while. So
yeah, I wasn't, but yeah, once I got Renwell and just able to just sit back there and cast spells, she was really fun to play with, like with the charge spells. That was fun because you still had to have strategy. Because of course, if she gets struck, this it interrupts the spell. You got to start all over, and they take some time to cast. So you got the ability to actually move. You could walk while casting the spell in order to try to avoid some attacks. It was a lot of fun. Like if you were feeling the same way, you didn't just want to have your standard brawler. I don't think you could play as Shion. Like I don't think that would be as much
yeah, she
fun.
kind of just sniping everything down, I guess. Is that
Yeah,
what
well,
she's
she
doing?
needed to heal so much.
Yeah.
You'd just be sitting there healing the
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, that's true. She's definitely the heat. Well, sometimes when we were talking about party members, I mean, of course, Shion, like I said, was in my party, but sometimes when I was fighting against something really hard, I would bring in Doho in because he was one of the other ones who had a lot of healing. So sometimes I needed two of them, you know? So,
Yes. So if you really wanted to go through the CP items, you could bring them both in.
yeah. But I was going to say about Rinwell, I can see your point that Rinwell I could see being very enjoyable to play as. I felt like she was really powerful for sure. I don't question that. So I can see your point on that one.
I've not played as the mages before in Tales games because I feel like they were stronger with me not playing as them, right? Like they were constantly doing spells and I wasn't able to do as fast. Whereas in this game, I found myself able to cast just as quick as possible and really utilize her to her best ability. And it was a lot of fun. Like just I wouldn't play it any other way. Like I guess later in the game it's not a big spoiler, but you can't always play as who you want to play as, let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
it was not as enjoyable then. But yeah, as long as I got to play as Renwell. But I didn't run around the field with her. It was pretty much Alphen was always the one I ran
Okay.
around with.
Okay. With Rinwell though, don't you have to I think because you remember if you remember you have to get all those titles and there's all those nodes, you have the skill points, you know, you can develop all the different skills. Isn't for Rinwell to be able to cast while she's running around, that's a skill, right? You have to get I don't think
That's
she can do that right away, right?
No, she cannot.
Yeah.
She'll sit there and get hit a whole lot. But once you can open that up, it's a walk. Like you're not running around. It's a slow pace, but it at least gives you some ability to avoid attacks.
Okay.
And for the most part, they don't. The enemies are really dumb. They don't go after you, even though you're pummeling them with magic. Like you should be the first person they go after, but they never do.
That's interesting. I've always thought when I'm not Rinwell, you know, I feel like they were always going after
Oh,
after me.
really?
Yeah.
No,
That's
there'd be
interesting.
plenty of times I'd be like in some of the harder fights. If I did get wiped out, I'd be the last one standing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like they always would go after the other ones, and I'm like, would you stop doing that right now? Just come after me.
And of course, if I'm, especially the older Tales games, when anytime there was a mage, just the first person I always went for, take them out.
Oh yeah, definitely. You gotta get rid of them. They can wipe you out too, so you
A-
gotta get rid of them.
Absolutely. This game changed things quite a bit. It definitely felt like you were facing a lot more, animal enemies. There was very few people other than the lords, but I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
there were a lot of I felt like one of the things I noticed though is I don't know if it was kind of cheap on the developer's part or not, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of the same enemy types, you know, like I feel like they didn't really develop that many different enemies. They just like made them look different. It's like they threw like a blue skin on an orange enemy. It's like the same, you know what I mean? So I wish there had been a little more variety, I feel like in terms of that. But
Yeah, it was kind of the old school way of you've got a limited amount of polygons, and we changed the color. It's different.
yeah.
Or
Higher it's
the
higher level
knights.
of different, yeah. Yeah.
The knights just got a few more spikes on them in a different color as you went a lot further along. So they use that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the enemy variety was a bit lacking. Yeah.
What did you think of the having the cure points and then the like the arts gauge, like in terms, you know, the arts gauge that refills itself, and
Yeah.
then the cure separate cure points. Like, what did you think of that?
I hated it. I mean,
What did you hate about it?
the uselessness of it. The fact, so you've got magic, which is unlimited, right? Which is kind of weird. There's always been MP type of deals to some extent, but yeah, the healing, all it either required you was to have to camp all the time, which you got the boost for cooking and all that stuff. It's all related, or
Yeah,
spend a ton of money, trying to replenish your items all the time and using those for healing. So I didn't I didn't care for that aspect of it. Towards the end of the game, especially if you did all the side quests, you could get a pretty big allotment of CP and you'd be okay.
you can. Yeah,
But you're talking about towards the end of the game. Certainly at the beginning, it is an issue. And like you said, if you wanted to put two healers in there, oh man. And they're not. I feel like if the AI would have been smarter, it probably wouldn't have been as bad, but they were pretty bad. Like they would cast just healing nonstop, even when you didn't necessarily need it, because there wasn't as much, you couldn't micromanage it as much as you needed to. or they would be sitting there dying, and you'd have to go tell Shion to cast a healing spell, please.
Well, I think you can get around. I kind of got around that by customizing the battle strategy a lot because you could customize it. So I feel like I eventually got to the kind of the sweet spot where they weren't doing that anymore, but it just took a while for me to figure it out because it wasn't one of like the preset strategies so much. I had to really like customize it exactly what
Okay.
percentage, I wanted them to start healing the party members, like what percentage of their health was left and all that stuff.
Okay. I feel like it wasn't as well. The AI, you didn't have as many settings as you used to in Tales games. Like I was able.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was feeling the same way on that.
Yeah, there weren't as many settings, so you really had to like finally kind of customize it yourself. Like I used that. There's a strategy called go all out on bosses, so I used
Hmm.
that against bosses, and that was pretty good. But I agree with you that otherwise there weren't that many like preset kind of nice settings, and you had to really go in there and customize it to get it to do what you want.
The thing I think would have been helpful is using this system. Like if you could have had more of a FF7 remake where you could switch freely between the characters. I
That
think
would
that
have been cool. I mean,
I think that would have really helped. You could have quickly switched and done what you need to do, or like, hey, a spell's coming. Get out of there. Don't just stand in the field
I
of
know, I hate
effect.
that they just stand there. They just stand there. That was really annoying with it when they do that. And then when your healer isn't, like you said, not healing quickly enough, and then they just end up dying, so then you end up having to waste items reviving them. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I've never. It's been a while since I played a game that the AI would just let itself get destroyed as often as it did.
Yes.
I
It's
mean,
frustrating. Yeah, frustrating.
we're not talking about like Xenoblade Chronicles like jumping off of cliffs to their death, but pretty close.
Yeah, or when they step in like a puddle of poison and they just stand there. I
Yes.
remember that. They didn't do that at least in this game. But yeah,
To be fair, there were no poison puddles for them to
that's
stand in,
that's
so
true. Maybe they knew the AI couldn't handle that. So
it would just sit there till they were dead.
yeah.
Good grief. But yeah, that was frustrating. Like you're going to make all these changes, but then they made some of the changes like that were definitely not for the better.
No, and I don't mean to say any complaint because actually I really loved the game to be honest, like fully. I did love the game like overall, but it's another complaint I have though is about the accessory building system, like the crafting.
Yeah.
I just thought like the accessories ended up sort of being a waste of time until you get maybe a couple certain ones towards the end of the game. I was like, okay, this is useful, but I just found myself not using a lot of those, like, a lot of the things that you pick up little items to build the accessories, and I just found myself just kind of hoarding those, and I didn't really end up using a lot of it, and I didn't feel like it was helping me one way or another in battle, maybe until the very end, kind of. I don't know. I didn't really like the accessory system very much, the crafting. So
No, it was pretty annoying, and I did feel like you were just collecting all these things to make an accessory.
yeah,
And then
pretty
you've
much.
got to get the right traits in it. And then you got to make a couple of the same one. So then you can sacrifice them in order to build up a better version of the same one. It was tedious to say the least.
I agree. And I found myself just not doing it much because I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, if I'm not enjoying doing this part of the game, I'm just not really going to do it. And it didn't really end up, I feel like it didn't really end up costing me in any way. So that kind of tells you how useful that was. But
No, and only eventually could they get to be pretty beneficial, but
yeah, at the end, for sure. Yeah.
not even that much, right? You were better served spending your time trying to get resources to build the best weapons, right, as
Yeah,
opposed to
it's definitely
accessories.
important. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But that
Um,
was, yeah, that wasn't. Uh, they can't all be winners, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they couldn't make every part of the game amazing, but overall, it was a really good experience. Where there are some of those like little things like that. I feel like that just kind of get to you from time to time. But overall, the cooking was maybe another thing. Um, it made me really hungry. I will say that 'cause a lot of those things sounded really good. It always gets me all those, especially it's not like Final Fantasy 15 level, any of that food. But this game still made me pretty hungry. But I found myself only cooking probably like four or five of the recipes out of all of them, though. Like
Hmm.
a lot of them, they sure sounded delicious, but I was like, oh, I don't know if that's really going to benefit my party that much. So I just found myself kind of going back and forth between like, five kind of go-to recipes. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, if I needed to go, find ore or equipment, materials, I would do that boost. or if I was going to go into a boss fight, I'd have a defense or an offensive boost. It was, yeah, like 4 or 5 things that you would just go to all the time. And really, other than, I guess, if you cooked so many different ones, there was like a title or two you could unlock. But,
Right. Yeah. Right.
I just kind of spammed that. I just sat there and camped a whole bunch of times and got all those.
You can spam it. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Spam it.
And then I didn't, like, I kind of felt like the conversations, I'm sure they were fine, but I didn't really want to do those. I don't know. I did enjoy the fact that, like, the conversations and skits were at least, like, animated as opposed to
Yeah.
the old where it's just, moving mouths and moving pictures on and off the screen as the old tales. I did enjoy at least they put some time and effort into those.
I did think that was cool. I mean, I'm not going to get into some of until the spoiler part of this. I'm not going to get into some of the subject of the skits right now in this half. But some of them I feel like got a little repetitive at times, but I
Yeah.
did appreciate kind of the almost like a comic book look, I think, that they kind of went with on how, they kind of went to different panels, and had different motions and things like that while they're talking. And I did think that was pretty cool, but wait, I just think there's too many. Like they interrupted what you're doing too much. A lot of the skits, like I liked it in the other Tales games where you had them kind of frequently, but in this game I felt like really frequently. And then of course I didn't want to. You don't have to look at it, but when it's there, I feel like it makes you feel like you have to look at it. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like at the beginning, I watched more of them. As I got on, yeah, it says a little skit is available in the bottom of the screen. It's like, I don't want to do that. It's going to take 5 minutes, and I just want to get, get on to the next point. The thing that speaking of like animations and stuff, the thing that annoyed me was after they cooked, like everyone's going to love this dish. It's the best thing ever. And like they do a twirl and like they present it up like I was like, oh my gosh, that got annoying really fast.
Oh, there was that. Remember that? I don't know if you recall. There's that one gourmet guy, like that gourmet expert. It's like
The shit. Oh yeah, I
yeah,
liked him now.
he was really fun. How excited he would get after he like loved a dish. I've never seen anybody get that excited. So
What did he always say? Like it's the
I
best
can't remember.
ever of all or
Yeah,
whatever.
ever. Yeah.
And then Alvin finally got in on it at the end.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
I love that because yeah, there's always like the wandering chef or the hidden guy. So he filled that role. So I appreciate they kind of brought that back for this one.
Yes. And I do want to make the dough halim pancakes sometime. That sounded pretty good.
So you are totally the market for the cookbooks that I was talking about.
Am,
Okay.
yes, I want it. Yes, I really want it. And I saw. So is it only possible to get it digitally now? Because I saw something about that. I missed my chance to get the physical copy.
I think that's what's going on. Like
Oh,
it was physical, and they made 5 of them, and now it's all digital. But that's the way everything is anymore, right?
well, I still want it anyway. So
Maybe
because
you put an email in, and they'll make some more of them. I don't know.
did you like the owls? Did you like all the Hoodle and all the owl friends?
Absolutely. Like I've heard it said before, but this might have been like the best collector type one in the tales where they were you had to actually look for them. Like some of them were pretty well hidden, but there's always the
Yeah.
clues, with Hoodle going crazy for it, and it gave you some pretty good rewards for collecting them all.
They did. I liked that, and I like the different voices, all voiced by like humans. You'd be walking around and you hear this, ooh, 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 and or maybe like a different like surfer type of owl, with a surfer
Yeah,
voice and all that kind of stuff.
it
I
wasn't just the
I love
same owl
that.
voice. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah,
yeah.
I did like that a lot. Yeah.
That was well done, and I hope they kind of because those things can get pretty stale, or it's like, oh, here's a little dead end path. I bet there's something hidden down here. No, it was just as you're going along, and you'd have to look. There was a couple of them, like you'd hear them, and you'd be looking everywhere, so you would never find them. I'd have to call my wife over, like, can you see this owl? Where is it? I
Yeah,
can't.
where is this thing? It's right there. I can hear it all around me. Where is it? Yeah.
Or you'd walk just far enough to where Hoodle would go away, like, no, I guess I got to turn around.
I know, and you couldn't believe that it was there somewhere. Like, I mean, they did a pretty good job with some of how they hid some of those.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And going to the little Hal Owl Island. I mean, I miss some of the old ones, but I think this one was they nailed that one at least.
They did, and I did think I didn't mean to like bash all the skits because some of the skits they still had some of the humor in there. Because it just reminded me with like Hootle, so Hootle like kind of attacking Law sometimes. Like he would
Yes,
really want to attack. Like I did find they did have some really good humor in a lot of the skits, and it was still a lot of really funny moments. So I still appreciated that, and I thought Hootle was a really good sidekick creature, in this Tails game.
maybe he's up there for the best mascot just because he didn't talk.
I still think Hootle's one of the best, but I did like some of the other previous ones and other Tales games that were like some people get annoyed by some of them, but I do kind of like the ones that are purposely obnoxious, that really make some of the characters irritated. I do like some of those sidekicks too.
The
Tipo,
Bienfus,
Tipo,
Tipo,
yeah,
Mew. Oh, I love
Mew, yeah, Mew.
I love that one. But yeah, I feel like he's got to be up there just for the non-annoying factor. But just you kind of touched on the humor in part of it. Didn't you feel like there was a lot less humor than previous ones?
Um, at points, I mean,
At
I did keep
points.
watching all the skits. I kept watching all of them, so there was some humor even later in the game. A good deal of it, I thought. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I would say on the whole there was a little less than other Tales games, but I wouldn't say it was a lot
Maybe
less.
I just didn't watch enough of them.
Yeah, you
I feel
probably
like
just said,
I just feel like it was overall was a little more serious than maybe some of the other ones were.
yeah, yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah, but I don't blame you if you stopped watching some of the skits later too, just because of what happens earlier in the game. So.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the item usage. What was there anything more irritating than just the complete lack of gold and how many items you'd have to use in particular on the boss fights?
Yeah, you're just running out of money all the time. It just reminds me. I don't know if you'll agree with this, but because I think you like Ni no Kuni, but I really didn't like Ni no Kuni after a while because I
Blasphemy!
felt like
Get out of here!
but it just felt like I was just constantly running out of resources, and it reminded me of that kind of. I felt
Okay.
like in Ni no Kuni, I was running out of resources. Although I'll say, as you get later in the game, I felt like I wasn't running out of resources as much
It finally
anymore.
got better at the end.
Um,
Yeah.
I agree with you about the boss item usage. I mean, it's just crazy. It just feels like you're just burning through items during on boss fights, like just like I've never seen. So
It is. I mean, maybe like some old school type ones, but yeah, I've never really seen anything like that before. And part of it is your healing tied to the. So you've got two. You got your CP usage out the wazoo, but you need all your healing items to keep alive as well, and life bottles, and
oh,
it
the life
was.
bottles, you really need those. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely rough, especially the beginnings. Now, do you care to admit what difficulty you played this on?
I just played on the normal. It's
Okay,
not very difficult. Yeah.
okay, so I even bumped it down to story mode. Like I got no shame in admitting that, but because I died 3 times on Balsif, and I was like, this is not this, and that was on. I think it was on story mode by that point even, but I think that
Oh, so
helped a little bit in the items. I didn't use quite as much as like you and like Hans was going on and on about it too, but definitely I didn't use as much, I guess, on that difficulty level. But you never had enough gold. Like it was like Dragon Quest One levels of having to just fight nonstop in order to get stuff. But then the fights don't get you anything, so you had to go and fish. Apparently, that was the way to make money.
yeah, the fish, and then I will say I did like fishing though, and I caught every fish just because I liked it, and not even because I felt like I had to. I really did enjoy the fishing. Um, Although I will say, I don't know if you remember this. I thought I didn't like the fishing at first until I realized there's a certain button combination that you can actually display that tells you which buttons to press to kind of get a certain fish to show up. But I didn't
Oh
realize that at
yeah,
first, so
with
I
the
felt bad for
lures. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I was just doing random stuff and it'd randomly appear, and I feel like some great random achievement when I get the fish I wanted. But then I finally understood it, and I really liked that part.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole kicker. Like I liked it better than some, not as much as others. It wasn't that bad. I still, if you didn't have the proper lure, you couldn't catch hardly any of them. Or the rod, it took you forever to get an upgraded rod, which you really needed to get some of those fish.
It did, yeah. It took a while to get some of the upgrades. I did appreciate how, I mean, you still have to kind of react with certain controls when you're fishing, but I do appreciate it when at least it doesn't make me kind of freak out or get tendonitis, like a lot of fishing games do. Like, for example, Cold Steel 2. There's
Cold
Cold
Steel
Steel 2.
2.
You're rotating the joystick at a million miles an hour and your hand's about to fall off. And I really don't think they should make fishing games so that it becomes painful. So I'm glad they
No,
didn't do that.
that was the worst. Thank goodness they
Yeah.
learned their lesson. It was
Yeah.
much better in 3 and 4, but
It was.
2, I mean, oh, that's legendarily bad.
It just hurt. I'm sitting there, my wife's watching this vein pop out of my head, you know what I mean? As I'm trying to just rotate the joystick, like, and I would end up losing the fish, have to do it all over again. It takes a lot of energy.
Isn't fishing supposed to be relaxing?
That's what I thought. But,
Not then, but yeah, this one was fun. Like I definitely lost the fish that I lost was because I didn't have the proper equipment. It wasn't for lack of skill.
sure, yeah, it's mostly if you don't have the right equipment for the fish you're trying to catch, it's like most of the time you won't succeed, and I guess that makes sense. So,
Yeah, I guess that's life. So, yeah, did you feel like the bosses were and also in terms of items, of course, but bosses or there were some random like difficulty spikes as well?
I did, and I mean, I can kind of respect it. I mean, they really make, but they are big difficulty spikes. I think, like just like you were talking about Balsef, like so first major boss. I felt like they really made it clear this is not a regular enemy. Like this is going to be pretty difficult, and it's going to be more powerful than anything else so far. They make that pretty clear. I think.
Hmm.
So I do think it's a pretty big spike. And then, kind of in the future ones, I also died on the, on the first boss battle a couple times, but I felt like in the future ones, it kind of got me in the different mindset where I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a joke. It's not going to be a joke. I can't just go around and start hacking at the boss and think I'm going to win. I actually have to really kind of think this out, maybe even adjust my party strategy a little bit, differently. So, yeah, I think there's a pretty big gap though in difficulty between the enemies and any bosses for sure. Like bigger than a lot of other games, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Is they make you learn the hard way, kind of with the first lords, like because I think I was like
Yeah.
5 levels underneath him, and it's like that's not going to work. Like you're going to need to be if they're going to show you the level, you need to be kind of around that level, or you're not going to do well. And the same thing with like the unique monsters, the hunts that you'd go on, type
Oh
of deals.
man,
You'd have no
yeah,
clue until you got close enough, and then it was too late.
and then they just destroy you,
Yes.
just absolutely destroy you.
I mean, that first one that you see, it is many hours
It
and
is.
regions later before you can even come close to defeating it.
And the ends of the boss battles are always stressful because they always, they start getting. They're like, it's kind of the thing where they're like, okay, now I'm really mad. They start blinking and whatever. It's kind of like in like for anyone old school, like in Turtles 2, the arcade
Yes.
game, where like the bosses start when you start about to beat a boss, they start blinking really quickly, and they're mad, and they start doing other stuff that you don't want them to do to you.
Yeah, you're
And
going
I
to get
guess that's
shell
what.
shocked a few times by
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, so I just I felt like that, like, and I starts making you nervous when you're about to win, but you're really not about to win because the boss is bringing out some new tricks out of its pocket. So
Oh, yeah. And of course, I mean, you get them down to 1 HP, and then you have to, engage the special attack in order to
oh
defeat
yeah,
them,
right. Yeah, you do. I forgot about that.
which is fine. I mean, I don't, it kind of makes sense in some ways, but it's just, yeah, you can't just be hovering on 1 HP the whole time. That's not cool.
I found, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a fitting way to watch the boss die. I think that's cool when they end it
Oh,
like that. But it's just
yeah, and die they did. That was it got mature a couple times in not only the boss fights, but a couple of the scenes. They definitely upped the maturity, which I appreciated quite a
it
bit.
did.
Like
Yeah.
obviously, I think it was rated teen. It wasn't mature, but yeah, they had some mature things in there for the older gamers, which I definitely enjoyed. One of the highlights that I thought of the game, although it was a little I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Sporadic, like it had peaks and valleys. But how did you feel about the soundtrack? Like I felt like it was both vintage Tales at times, and then kind of whatever at times.
Maybe I'm just too influenced by the tracks that were really, really, really good. But I thought this soundtrack was one of the best Tales soundtracks, one of the best Tales soundtracks ever.
Okay,
Besides maybe Tales of Legendia is probably like my favorite. But I mean, this was really either right there with it or just maybe right below it. Just some of the, I think a lot of it is the orchestra. You know, the
I
orchestra
was
kind
about
of
to
in
say the
there.
orchestra was
Yeah,
huge.
that really like adds like a lot of more. It enhances the emotions of the game that are happening, I think, and I
Hmm.
really it's like an element that was kind of missing from some other Tales games, I think. And I just some of the, you know, when Alphen always gives his motivational speeches like a coach ready, you know, trying to coach his team into the championship or something like that. But he's given these motivational speeches, and the orchestral soundtrack behind that just really got me really pumped up. You know, I thought they did a really good job with that. And they have some really sweeping melodies, you know, when you're out in the open world. And I just thought, I don't know, I thought the orchestral soundtrack was really well done here. I thought it was one of the best Tales soundtracks.
I don't know if it's just because I just have sound through my TV. I don't have anything special or anything. Did it drown out the voice at any point in time for you, like the music?
No, but
No.
I did have it through my surround, like I have the surround sound system, so I don't know if that had something to do with it, but I didn't find that happening
Okay.
just here.
I didn't know if that was part of, of course, with the PS5, it's got the 3D audio, and I didn't know if that was some sort of weird nuance with that was trying to throw. But was it the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra? Was that who did this one? Or London? I
I
can't
want,
remember.
I can't remember anymore. I
But
noticed it when I watched the credits, but now I forget. So
yes, I can't recall either. But yeah, it was like I said, at times it was just phenomenal. Just and other
it
times
was, yeah.
I was kind of, the only reason why I say that is that since then I've been listening to a bunch of soundtracks here lately, and it seems like every time I hear like an old Tales, track, I'm like, I get more emotion out of those old ones than I do when I think back to Arise. But it definitely had, and obviously, no matter what, orchestra is the way to go with JRPGs. If you can do it,
Yeah,
it makes a huge difference.
it does. I think it makes a humongous difference. I mean, I feel like they held back with it until a few hours into the game, though, because when you hear the soundtrack at first, I guess in the first area in Calaglia, it's not that impressive. It sounds like kind of the music you'd play in the background if you had like indigestion or something. And I just didn't really like, I didn't understand what they were kind of going for. I guess it's supposed to be a really dreary area or something, but
Yeah,
but then finally they open it up, you know, when you get out of there, and I was like, okay, wow, this is really great, this soundtrack. So.
it certainly was. I don't. I'm trying to think what else we can really say without getting into spoilers. Is anything
Well,
you got to throw in there?
yeah, well, what about the costumes?
Oh, the costumes. Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
were. I obviously all the good ones were locked behind DLC, and I get that you want to pay for those things, but I think they were well done. You got at least a few of them either through titles or doing side quests or whatever like that, and I enjoyed them. They were definitely for the most part it was just a different color of the same one, but I
So you didn't get
definitely
you didn't get the farmers costumes?
I did, but who's going to use that? Come on.
I used them. I had them running around like that for like maybe like 15 minutes, but it does take me out of the story a little bit when I do that. So
Yes.
I'm not a big proponent of that for myself. Like it kind of brings me out of the immersive experience, but it was pretty funny for a little bit.
I know, like most people probably would have once they got Alphen's armor. Did you keep him on his?
Um,
I didn't like it for some reason.
yeah, I didn't keep the armor on actually. No,
Okay,
I did not. Yeah.
I just thought he looked really dumb, running around in
Yeah,
like the full suit of armor.
I did not keep the armor on.
Yeah, until later on when he got some cool ones. But yeah, there was definitely as playing as Renwell. Obviously, I dressed her up a little bit more, but and I didn't think. I thought Law kind of got the short end of the stick, and Dolim is exactly the same. It's just some regal
It's
guard the
different.
entire time.
Yeah.
Did you put him in the farmers? That would have been funny.
I did. And I put everybody, yeah, I put everybody in there for a little bit. So.
But
So
yeah, I feel like that this game probably would have been fun to if I had the money to buy some of the outfits because they were really amazing. But then of course they were locked behind the paywall. But
those
I don't.
notifications were annoying though.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was bad. That was not a good move on their part.
And it just wouldn't. I thought it was just me actually until I heard you say something. I think recently on another episode or something. I thought it was just me. I was like, why can't I get these things to go away?
Yeah, no, they now I guess that was the last update. It did finally take that stuff away, but for 2 or 3 months, you'd have had to sat there with constant reminders of hey,
Yeah.
you want to spend $50 more, you can do that.
Well,
And
yeah, they reminded you that they would love your money. So
yeah, and that I as I mentioned before, I did have an issue with the DLC being able to like make the game easier with more gold and those type of abilities to get more experience, and that would have made the game easier. But yeah, I just don't. I don't know. Like those things irk me. I don't know why.
yeah, I don't really like those kinds of things either. But
I guess it's
maybe
just the
that's
reality of gaming anymore.
I think it is. I thought of one other thing. What did you think of the voice acting in the game?
But that was pretty good. The main six were exactly how I would have envisioned them to be. They
Hmm.
were all, of course, you have the characters as he is, and then, halfway through it, they're, oh, I'm completely not the person that you thought I was. Like to a T, they were all kind of like that. But I thought it was pretty good. Knowing the challenges in particular with voice acting that they would have had to go on through making this game during the pandemic, I thought it was pretty well done.
I thought that. I mean, granted, we're talking about the English voice acting here. I didn't listen to the Japanese voice acting, but I thought the English voice acting was really. I thought it was really well done. I mean,
Yeah.
there were some times when here and there, like when I was saying, like when Alphen was giving one of the speeches or something like that, it started to feel like okay, like this person is acting just a little bit, but otherwise, I think it was pretty well done.
Yeah, I agree. The thing I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, best thing about the entire game was loading it up in the opening scene or the
Oh
opening
man, I
animation.
loved watching the animation. I'm glad you brought that up. I could not stop watching. Well, there's two animations. I won't talk about
We won't talk
them
about that
here,
just yet.
but I mean, like any animation for the game is awesome. Yeah,
They always do a
yeah.
really good job with that opening animation. I feel like this was easily probably top three. I really loved the song and what they did with it.
It was up there. I mean, I think Abyss was one of my favorites. The intro to that, and this
Yeah.
was really this was definitely right up there. I mean, I was
I,
not I didn't watch any of it before I ever played the game, so it was the first time I saw it. I never watched any trailers or any of that, so I was pretty blown away by it.
I never skipped it. Like I always wanted to watch it, and that's really saying something.
Yeah, me too. I watched it. Yeah, I definitely watched it every time.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So yeah, I don't think I have anything that's not a spoiler
Nope.
left.
All I have left are spoilers. So
Well, why don't we give our listeners a opportunity that thank you for listening so far. If you don't want to listen to anything more, we completely understand, but we're going to get into all the rest of it here in just a moment. Yeah, you can say goodbye and go do your thing, and we'll be back with the second half of the podcast here in just a second. All right, everybody, we're back. Hopefully, you are prepared for the spoilers that are coming. We're going to dive into just about everything I can think of that we wrote down to talk about. But I guess, Jordan, we got to start at the beginning. And why in the world did they change our animation halfway through the game?
well, some things happened.
That's no reason.
I really like I really like the second. I mean, did you like the second animation
I
as much as
no,
the first
I
one?
did not. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, I really liked it. I like both.
No, it was terrible. It got me
Oh.
depressed. It didn't get me fired up.
Yeah, but at the end of you kind of get an idea though. I remember that you see them in the white, the white clothing at the end, and you kind of have an idea that maybe everything has worked out okay after all.
Oh, and that's fine, but I'm just saying, like in terms of quality, like I wanted to watch it every time the first time. Now I don't want to, and that's a problem. So
Uh,
I think
well,
if you let it go, If you let the title screen go, and it times out, it will play the first animation
Oh, I
again.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it happened by accident one time. I was like, oh, it's still there. But yeah, by default, when you get halfway through the game, it starts playing that second one, which I don't think, unless I'm mistaken, that's not happened before, right? In a Tales game.
No, I don't. I don't believe so. That they had, after story events happen. I don't believe I've seen that before in a Tales game. But I mean, I'll agree to disagree with you. I really like the second animation just about as much. I like both of them a lot.
Well, you can be wrong, and that's okay,
Yeah.
Jordan. Um, I mean, obviously, I guess it was purely so that they could show Alpha without the mask on.
So the mask, yeah, no mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess if we're talking big spoilers and we're talking Alpha, let's just ask this: did you kind of see like his story going that way? Did you kind of guess that he was in fact the Sovereign halfway through, or was that kind of complete surprise?
I mean, there's something special about him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Even in the way that I don't even the way that what's that? I forget the doctor guy. You know the doctor guy in Calaglia, the doctor that
Yes,
in the
that
beginning. I
first
feel like
whatever guy.
even the
Yeah.
way he kind of treats him, and then you find out whenever a JRPG character has amnesia or something like that, there's some kind of special thing about them that they lost. So it wasn't that, wasn't that. I guess it wasn't that much of a surprise if you think about it. But
They're not just a regular person who has amnesia; that they're forgetting something pretty important. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that is kind of a telltale thing, but yeah, that was he always seemed like he was somebody special, but yeah, I was kind of glad when he lost the mask. That was weird that you could still see through it and not feel any pain. But yeah, I did like how they progressed that whole story, and it did start to get a little crazy, of course. Before that's a theme of the second half of the entire game. It's going to get crazy.
it always well that's the second half of JRPGs for you. Usually things get crazy, but this one does get pretty crazy and pretty out there. I think. Before we get into that, when you just mentioned, I wanted to mention about the mask.
Yes.
I remember thinking when he had it on before they referenced it, even about like eating and stuff. But then they actually talk about that. I remember they mentioned that he can eat under it or something.
Uh
I'm like,
huh.
how does he do that? He slides it underneath the chin or something.
That's
I
the
don't know
only
how he
thing
does
I
it.
could figure is like it had enough of a gap to where he could, get a spoon up in there or something like that. But yeah, that
And
didn't make a whole lot of sense.
well, can you imagine what that would do to your skin after 300 years or whatever it is? I mean, can you imagine like he's
Apparently,
like take
nothing. He looked
yeah,
fantastic.
he did. He takes his mask off. It's like maybe he's had like a facial for 300 years. It just I don't know how.
And his
Yeah, I don't
hair is
know.
perfectly, all, it's not ratty and disgusting of not being washed for 300 years.
Or like brushing his teeth and stuff. I don't know how he. I don't get it. But
Obviously, all those things are built into the mask, and it just makes him perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there's enough crazy things going on in the story. You're not concerned about personal hygiene, I guess. That's
I guess not. I mean, and maybe Volron was jealous the whole time because he didn't get a mask. Maybe that's what his whole thing was.
he wanted a mask. He just didn't
Yeah,
get one. That's the
yeah.
whole
Maybe
point
that's
of
why.
it.
Yeah.
I really did like Volron. I wish he would have been more of a steady antagonist. I guess
Me
he did.
too. Yeah.
I guess he popped up enough, but more of a Sephiroth type where he's just there all the time, constantly doing things. Because it certainly seemed like at the beginning or when they first get there, he could have wiped them all out pretty easily.
He could have. Yeah, he seemed like incredibly powerful and also just nuts. You know what I mean? Like they
Oh
really kind of
yeah,
played up his insanity, which I think when you think about it later, he was a little too insane to be the main villain. You know what I mean? Like just a little too insane. Like you'd want him to be the main villain, but then they just kind of made him so crazy. I feel like, of course, then he couldn't be ultimately.
absolutely. And it's always like whoever you think the villain is, there's always some bigger thing lurking out there that has to be in there. I can't just have like the regular human bad guy. There's got to be something otherworldly going on. This game certainly
I mean, he
goes.
does he does show up like a big jerk near the end and ruin the Renis Alma though, right? He self destructs with it, so he kind of ruins one of the plans they had. I mean, that's part.
Yeah.
He was important in ruining their plans, I guess, at the end in a way. But
Special ability was Plans Ruiner. Yeah,
yeah,
it's that's a pretty jerk move. Yeah, you are correct. That is. I mean, I guess let's just get into crazy story parts. Like in
All right.
terms of tales, this is about as out there as it gets.
It's out there. Yeah, it's out there. Yeah.
Did you like the direction that it chose to go in, or would you at least want to stay? Like now, Tales have definitely had multiple planets, like and planes of existence, or however you want to look at it, like that. That's
Yeah.
nothing. That's nothing new, but I just feel like this one was completely different with the space element to it.
Yeah. Just when they start going in, I mean, you can kind of see the sci-fi direction it's going once they start going into space. I'm like, okay, we're on Lenegis, this like whatever it is, space station planet in between Rena and Donna and everything.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, we can see the weird direction this is going to go in. And then you have the whatever is the Helgonquin or whatever, like which are the original inhabitants, I guess, of Rena, who turn out to be those red women, I guess, in
Uh,
disguise.
Weird.
And it just got it did just get weird. It's like you want to get weird, let's get weird. I mean, it just kind of like went along with it. And I mean, overall, I think the story like it made sense, I guess, for the most part, but it just really went out there. They had to really go out there in order to make it make sense, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they could have not gone as far as they did with. I guess the alien race was probably the kicker for me. Like, I kind of already kind of halfway thought that's what Renans and Danans were the same. They didn't look any differently, so it didn't make sense that they were from different planets to a certain extent. That did seem like they all were kind of the same, but in
Because
terms of
they weren't ultimately right. Renans and ultimately ended up being Danans, right?
yes,
Who were just selected.
yeah, yeah. So I mean that kind of thing, but they were bred by this weird looking alien
Yeah.
monster things. Like, did we really need to go that far with it? Because that was weird, yeah. And that woman in red, just that was creepy. Yeah, I didn't.
It's
I
weird
didn't.
that the Helgonquin disguise, like the aliens disguised themselves as the red women. It was weird. It was really creepy too. The eyes were creepy.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't care for that. That's, I guess, where JRPGs normally stick to tropes. That when they go outside of those things, it just seems even weirder than maybe other types of games. Um, that would have been fine in like Star Ocean, maybe. You're
Yeah,
dealing
yeah,
with
yeah.
space or something anyway. But it entails
Xenosaga or something.
Xena. Yeah, that'd have been right in any of the Xeno games. That'd have been perfectly normal. I just didn't expect that. The one thing I did expect that I thought was really cool was when they did finally show, was it Dana, the other planet that like all the force had been sucked out of it.
Oh, Rena,
Rena,
all
yeah.
the force had been sucked out. Yeah, all the astral energy had been sucked out of it. Had been hollowed. There was
Oh
a
yeah.
hollowing
Yeah, it looked like an apple core. That was nuts looking.
with that, and then it's like the flower coming out with like there's all the astral energy being sucked from Donna. It was really weird.
Yes. It was like so I mean I enjoyed, because I enjoy a good sci-fi twist to it. I thought those parts were really cool and I enjoyed them quite a bit, but it just seemed like it was too much to really all digest at the end.
It was a lot to happen all at once, and just to find out that like basically it's this great spirit or whatever who has it's just like it's like astral energy that has gathered all together and become so concentrated it became like alive and sentient. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of a weird. I feel like that was kind of contrived. Like they had to kind of like make this just kind of make that idea up to make this whole thing work. But
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. Like it wouldn't have worked any other way, so we're going with that one.
I don't know. And then Dana was like didn't have it wasn't concentrated astral energy. It was like the will of the will of the planet was like dispersed to all the people, so it was kind of more spread out rather than all concentrated to become this great spirit. You know what I mean? Which turned out to be sort of like I'll call it evil, I guess, but it was trying to basically, um, I guess, become the main planet, kind of suck all the astral energy out of Donna and just bring it back to Rena and maybe I guess restore it or something.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in a weird sort of way, but I wasn't prepared for things to go that way, and it ultimately left kind of a sour taste. And of course, as it's been stated a couple times before, like You got to sit there and watch quite a bit of it. It does turn into a Xeno type experience of a lot of cutscenes. Whole lot. Take a couple steps, cutscene. Yeah. I didn't like it. I'm now we are kind of, if you've been playing games for a while, I mean that used to kind of be the way it was, just a lot of cutscenes and figuring out a bunch of stuff. But the way the story was told the entire time to that point didn't make sense to just have 2 or 3 hours worth of cutscenes at the end.
I think it's more just like so much happened. They had to do that in order to explain everything that happened. I mean, there was just so much to explain. Even that
Yeah.
crown contest, where's the actual current Renan ruler, like the actual sovereign now who apparently won the crown contest, only to find that he's made up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even explaining that.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah. It's like nobody's ever seen this guy. Oh, okay. That's not.
Because he doesn't exist.
Yeah. Nobody's ever asked a question before. That's fine.
And then
Nothing.
Shion's thorns explained too. They had to explain the reasoning for that as well. So
Yeah. I wasn't sure how that was going to end. I was like, this could go bad. Like, it wouldn't be the first time a major character hasn't made it through the game. I was like, maybe that's what's going to have to happen here. I wasn't sure until the very end how it was going to turn out with her.
I think the end was more like a little bit of fan service, like because they could have ended it. See, I was just trying to remember. So in the ending, I think so after Volron came and basically self-destructed and destroyed the Renis Alma,
Hmm.
and there was the second plan, which was to allow Shion to basically take in the Great Spirit and destroy it herself. So she basically destroy herself, and the Great Spirit. So
Hmm.
I feel like they could have gone that way, you know what I mean, with the end of it and had it end differently. But I feel like the fan service was to kind of have her live, and have the ending maybe everybody wanted. So they had to do that, like all of a sudden Alphen's third plan, which was to basically kind of commune with the Danan spirit and use its strength to defeat Rena, But it seemed kind of like a cop out just to have a happy ending.
It was. I agree, but I don't hate the fact that it was a happy ending. As I guess I've gotten older, I like the happy ending. Well, I don't want the sad. Everybody loses in the end, and of course, if we're going to talk about happy endings, this one did have an ultimate happy ending, which I was happy to see at the very end
I
with.
did. I liked seeing it, but I mean, I felt like the way they arrived at it, this seemed like they kind of made that happen. But I did like seeing the happy ending, and you even see after, their kind of their lives together after that too
Yeah,
a little bit, which I thought was cool.
that was certainly very nice. And so before playing it, the Tales of team had announced this is a standalone game. Like there's no DLC, there's no sequel. So the ending makes complete sense. Like happily ever after, we're not the world's not going to need you to take up your sword again type of deal. I felt like that was a nice touch because so often it's like doors are left open, possible
You're right.
sequels. No, it was all done at the end.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. I mean, but I just felt like they had to come up. The fact that they had to come up with this third plan all of a sudden with Alpha, and it seemed like this sort of thing they had to do to make the happy ending. But I guess if they had to do that, it's fine because I did like seeing the actual happy ending itself. So
Yeah, I mean, and of course, that's no matter what plan you have, it doesn't necessarily happen in the end. It's things are going to happen, so you got to have another plan. But Volron did a good job of messing all that up, and the fights against Volron in particular, I didn't love. Was it one time when you're both the sovereign fighting and you can't lose? That was kind of
yeah, well,
weird.
it's like when he goes. I forget which fight it is against him, but you had to fight him like with some of your party members before, and then you're right. It's like and then at the very last fight with him, though, then you can't lose. Like it's basically you and him one on one, kind of like the Sephiroth deal,
Yeah,
and and then you're fighting him one on one, and then it becomes like where you can't lose at that point.
yeah, which is good because I was getting my butt kicked. Like I would have lost instantly. He was destroying me. It was really kind of like, oh, okay, well, let me just keep on pressing these buttons until the fight's over, I guess, because I can't lose. That
He was no joke.
no, no, but that wasn't that. The game is brutally difficult at times. Now, I didn't. I guess we're going to skip around a little bit. I didn't really play the optional stuff as much.
Yeah.
Now, you You did.
I did, yeah.
Did you do everything? Now, I guess there was a Earth Temple. Is that the one that?
Yeah, they're just it's ridiculous. It might be called the Spirit Temple. It has it's the one where it's basically it's a randomly generated series of rooms where you feel like you can't. I mean, there's no. So first of all, you can't save. It's not that you feel like you can't. You can't save in it at all.
Oh,
And
geez.
you're just trying to make it through these random series of rooms so you can eventually get to where the boss is. And in pretty much every room, you just have to fight these really difficult enemies. Like first of there's either like it's like a combination of enemies that are kind of mechanical that shoot lasers at you at the same time while you're trying to fight really big ones who are trying to just smash you. And you're using so much healing and items, and if you die, you have to start the temple all over again. I
Oh
mean,
no.
you can't save it, and it took me like 40 minutes to kind of make my way through it. It's like a maze. There's no map or anything through it, so it's just and all the rooms. It's kind of one of those things where all the rooms like look the same.
Okay.
So I didn't know what I was getting myself into before I went in there, and to be honest, I don't know how I made it through it. Eventually, I made it through it, and it does let you save once you make it through to right before you fight the boss. And then anytime you exit and enter from there on out, you can skip that part. You can go right to the boss, which is
Okay.
nice. So I eventually like realized that, and I left to go to an inn and all that kind of stuff. But it was, that was very challenging. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone who likes fun because I didn't think that was fun. But I mean, I guess it was a relief. It was very relieving when I made it there. And then the boss is another thing entirely. Like I think I was under leveled for a while, so I didn't come back to the boss for quite some time because I got absolutely destroyed
Okay.
on the first time.
Is that gnome?
Gnome, yes, it's gnome.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, gnome.
There, after I finished it, I was kind of like, oh, where were the spirits? Like, and then I heard about their temple, and then gnome
Yeah,
being at the bottom of it, and
the grand gnome. That's what it is.
okay.
Yeah.
The only one I did fight was Sylvia, whatever it is, at the top of that tower.
There's this. Oh, the sylph. Yeah,
Yes. Holy
Marcellus
cow.
sylph. That thing was massive. That thing. Oh man.
I thought I was doing okay. And then like they just started, tornadoes everywhere. I was underpowered as it was. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I wanted to at least see what was going on. I was like, I don't know how strong you'd have to be to survive that fight. It was insane.
It was insane. I came back to that way later too. I did eventually beat it, but man, that was hard. And that thing, like I mean, it has all its little friends, its little bees
Yes.
that come after you, and then it like spawns four tornadoes or whatever that you have to avoid running around. If you encounter one of those, I mean, you pretty much are dead. So
Yes. Now, and of course, you can avoid it, maybe, but your party's not going to. They're done.
yeah, so I found myself having to revive a lot, and I still would say, I know that was hard, but I think even more than the Grand Gnome, I thought there's one like Undine, like Lua Undine. You have to go through this whole cavern filled with like
Yeah. I got to that one, and that was impossible.
that was really hard actually. I had to come back to that one.
Okay. Because I
But
beat.
eventually
So it's two forms, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's two forms. That's right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
when I thought I was done, I was like, oh man, thank goodness. And then
That's
like,
what I
"Here's one,
said.
dude." And I was like, are you kidding me? I got to do this all over again.
It's like I barely made it through this. There's no way. I think I just let myself die at that point because I was like, "There's no way I can beat this one." So, okay, so I got two of them without even really knowing. So I knew because I knew I wanted to go through that cavern because I knew there'd be some good stuff down there to collect items wise.
Well,
So
you can still get it. You can still get all that stuff without beating the boss anymore.
yeah, and of course I did, but because I think I saved it right before and just like nope, all right, getting out of here. But what? So there was a fourth one then?
Yeah, there's the Ifrit. There's the fire one that's in one of the volcano or whatever. That's one of them, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So,
Whatever that volcano is called. I forget what the volcano is called, but
oh yeah, I didn't go. See, I didn't go to that one.
okay.
Um, okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better. That at least experienced and knew what it was and knew not to do, not to drive myself crazy trying to accomplish those things just yet. So
Yeah,
you need,
and really, I don't think I would have. I don't think I gained a lot out of it, but besides, you know, the actual beating of those bosses, besides just feeling like I did it, I don't know that I would have had any like less trouble. I don't know that I had any less trouble, would have had any less trouble beating the game or anything like that. You know what I mean? I don't know that it
Hmm.
impacted the final outcome really, but I guess I could just feel like I beat it, and I don't know if that's really good enough to say to recommend them to someone. But
I guess other than for platinum trophy, I'm assuming there are trophies, but
yeah, I mean, and
completionist.
I don't really play for that. Like I didn't do. I know there's like the Kronos boss or something. It was at the end of the like post game dungeon. I didn't do that. I think you have to
Okay.
be like level 90 something. There's like level 90, maybe might be 99 or something. But I just watched it on YouTube because I knew I would never feel like doing it. So
Did you do the dungeon post?
no, I didn't. I
Okay.
once the credits rolled, you know, and I did all the owls. I found all the owls and everything. And
Okay.
once I did all that, I was done. I didn't really want to. I didn't feel enough to go back to it instead of like starting another game, you know. So
I did all the owls that I could without like needing a guide. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to do that because it was kind of fun to just find them naturally. And I was like, you know, you go to the forest and it's like, I'm missing quite a few of these. I'm going to need some help if I'm going to find them all.
it was challenging. I missed. So I used a guide to find. I think it was like two or three of them. I think, but I got the other ones. But two or three, I needed to use a guide, and I was like, I just want to get them all. So
I'm assuming you get a trophy for that, but yeah, I'm not that. If I get a trophy, that's awesome, but I don't really. It's not going to make me want to play more necessarily.
well, finding the owls actually lets you carry over more stuff to the next playthrough. That's what it does for
Okay,
like New Game Plus. So you could, if you want to play again, it lets you carry over more stuff.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do that, then there's not as much of a point
No,
to it.
not really. And I was gonna say, and this isn't really, this is something that happens earlier in the game, but I was gonna say one of the most, I can recall two most emotional parts of the game. I guess one was where Zephyr dies. You know, that one felt like
Yeah,
that was really hard. That was,
that
and
was
the
rough.
father and son thing where he doesn't get to really fully, you know, live. I guess have the relationship with his father that he finally realized he wanted. You know, Law, and I just felt like that was very emotional. That was hard to watch. And then
Hmm.
also um, where you're on the ship after Almadria, you beat Almadria, and then Shion gets taken away. You know, when
Hmm.
finally Alphen regains his. You know, he has a sense of pain again, so he can't touch her. You know what I mean? He can't pull her away, and
Yeah,
like that was hard to watch too. But I feel like the Zephyr thing ranks number one for me. That was the hardest scene emotionally, I think, for me.
that I mean, you could see that one coming in a way, but it's like you didn't want it to happen, and I think that hits. Those were the type of scenes that would hit people hardest because a lot of us, you know, not everybody has that perfect relationship with their father, and maybe not to that extreme,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, not all of us have our dad's blood on our hands per se. But I thought that scene was incredible, and then watching Law never get over it. As
Never gets over it. No.
how could you? Like no matter how many pep talks Alfin gives, he was responsible for that. And you know, even that side quest with the note and him saying all that, no. I
I,
mean, you're still going to
I did
carry
like
that.
I did like that side quest though. I thought that was really meaningful, you know, for a side quest and that
I
note
thought
and everything.
I thought that was fantastic. I wish there were more side quests that, you know, obviously the weight of that was extreme, but meant something more than just, well, this villager needs some items to bake a cake, so let's go out here and beat some Zoogles to do that. You know, finding you know, a note from your dead father is a pretty cool side quest. Yeah.
It is. I thought that was awesome. I think that one beef I have is that you know the real villain kind of turns out to be, you know, this great spirit or whatever. But I think this is something that's not just unique to this game. It happens in a lot of it. You know, JRPGs where you end up fighting some big spirit or big god or whatever. It's just
Yeah,
kind of a thing. But it just makes you like it. It's like you almost don't. It's hard to hate the Great Spirit, you know, as much
it
because you
is.
haven't really seen any character development of it the whole time. And all of a sudden, you're just fighting this thing that is just trying to suck the life out of your planet, but at the same time, it's not like I feel like I would have had a much more emotional investment to just beating Volron. You know what I
Yep.
mean? To really finally beating Volron, or like some of the other lords are just absolutely horrible at first. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Almadria is just
Oh
Almadria. I
my
think
gosh.
she is awful. She sets up that whole public execution just so that she can drain everybody's astral energy, and she's responsible for killing Rinwell's parents and all that. And it's just, she is just. I mean, these are some just people that have done some horrible things, and then all of a sudden they're all gone. You just fight this great spirit. I don't know. It just seems weird.
It was a bit unsatisfying. I mean, it was good to give them what was coming to them, but yeah,
It is, yeah.
in particular that scene where the whole town just turns to liquid. It's like,
Oh man, yeah, they all get
wow,
hollowed. Yeah,
that was crazy. Like for a Tales game, that was pretty intense.
that was. I mean, I think Berseria had some sort of intense things like that too. But I mean, this was really intense. So
Yeah, I mean the beginnings of Berseria with what happens, Laffy said that was as that set the bar, and then yeah, Arise kind of went over that even so. But I
yeah.
agree, like, and that is like you said, that is nothing new. Like you fight who you think the final boss is going to be, or you finally get to it, it's like, oh no, here's God, you got to go kill, or the person merges with God. It's like I expected that.
Oh
That's
yeah, they do merge sometimes.
I
Yeah.
thought Volron was going to merge with the Great
Oh
Spirit
yeah.
and make some sort of thing, and I'm surprised it didn't. But
Me too. Yeah, that's right. That could have happened.
yeah, in end of Final Fantasy 12 type deal where they just become all buff and godlike. That's but that's the way it is. You just kind of accept that's what's going to happen. You're going to be fighting some great spirit, and that's going to be the final boss.
I do agree with you about the Volron thing could have happened though with the merging because they put him. Remember they put him in the chamber, which was supposed to serve as an artificial maiden for the great spirit summoning ceremony or whatever, the spirit summoning ceremony. So
Right.
he was trapped in that room, which was the maiden. You know what I mean? So they could have done something from there, which could have had him merge with the great spirit. So I'm surprised they didn't go that direction.
Yeah, it is odd. Yeah, what to tell them? Like, hey, that's what you should have done. Fix
Yeah, you
it.
should have used the other JRPG trope that we didn't use this time. Yeah.
I mean, that is the way they are. What? So, I guess overall, though, the ending it was pretty good. It did wrap everything up. Like, I didn't feel like there was any unanswered questions per se.
No, and I felt like they did as much as you can wrap up a game. I feel like they did it. Like as you said, sometimes other games aren't wrapped up in such a neat way, but I feel like this one is pretty wrapped up.
Yeah, I think that was one benefit of them coming out and saying that this was a standalone game. There was not going to be sequels or post DLC that, and then they were able to do that. What? So as longtime Tales fans, what do you think this means going forward? Is it going to kind of remain this? Are they going to bring anything back? I mean, we didn't. One thing we didn't talk about was the post game or post fight skits that they cut from this. Were you a fan of
Oh
that?
yeah. I didn't mind because the talking afterwards was
Yes.
good. I thought so that was all right with me. It seemed like reasonably realistic, So I think I didn't find myself longing for the other quotes or moves that they always say at the end of fights or whatever. So I thought that was all right.
I feel like I missed it at first, and then once I got these characters, like it would have been really kind of awkward for them to have like battle poses afterwards.
It would have been awkward. I mean, the only thing I think we mentioned in the earlier episode, like this the skits, they got the developers. I thought were pretty clear about hammering home their message about really that we're all that everybody's the same and we all need to work together and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like they hammered that home a little too many times in some of the
Yeah,
skits, and I feel like it just got really. I know you stopped watching the skits, but that's what a lot of the skits were at the end. They did get very repetitive, kind of with the same message. So that's something I kind of wish they had maybe just done more of a variety of skits, I guess, rather than But I guess maybe it's just their way of saying how important this message was to them. I don't know. But
it did seem to kind of be a central theme, so they just wanted to keep hammering it, I guess.
yeah,
And with the differences is what kept them apart for so long. That these are what were actually the same. We should band together type of deals, but. So do you think this is the way it's going to be, or are they going to go back to some of the other Tales games? This you kind of feel like this is the new normal for them?
I mean, I guess it would make sense. I mean, I think it'll be more similar to this, but I think there still could be another evolution because you can kind of look at like it's not like this game was a surprise and I would say it's not really a sudden shift compared to other Tales games. Like if you look at Berseria before it, I feel like the series was kind of evolving, up to Berseria, and you could see kind of the next evolution from Berseria actually being something like this. To be honest with you, the way the
Hmm.
combat was going and all that. So I don't know. I I think there'll be some further evolution, just but not like a huge evolution. I just think it'll be more maybe similar to this, and maybe they'll go back to adjusting some of the skits and things like that again. Maybe they'll do that, but I don't know. I don't see it being all that different from this, but just maybe something we haven't thought of yet, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll take fan feedback and they'll do study groups and see what people liked and didn't like. And yeah, I think overall, I think with the move to Unreal Engine 4 and what they were able to do, graphics and engine wise, it was a natural progression for the series that they felt like it had staled out and they needed this change. So I don't see them going back on it. That's what doesn't really matter if people didn't like it overall, because I think the overall reception to it was very positive.
And it was a really, really, really good game. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. I would recommend it, maybe with some caveats or small complaints. Like I would recommend it to pretty much anybody, I guess. But I just I would say though I would be just as happy going back to play Tales of Destiny again. I love that style of game too. So I don't need it to be this style to be fun or something. It just happens to be the next evolution. But I mean I love the old games too, so
We're definitely we see the branch in terms of they're making a console and now a mobile version. I
oh
s-
yeah.
I mean I didn't care for the last two mobile ones now, but I really would love to see an old school either Destiny or Abyss type Switch handheld more experience, right? Of taking that classic Tale styles and making another game, and then maybe keep evolving the series in this direction. I think would be really well received.
I would really enjoy that. I would enjoy playing a classic style Tales game again, even like a new one. I think that would be great. I mean, I agree with you. I think they should really kind of do both if they can, or even if they just did a Switch remastering of Tales of Destiny. And Tales of Destiny 2 is not that easy to get anymore. So I
Hmm.
mean, that'd be cool if they had like some kind of bundle or something like that.
Yeah, I can see, because personally speaking, I didn't play those games, and they, like you said, they're not exactly easy to get. So it feels like a remaster of sorts of those games would be extremely smart a move on their part.
I think it would be. I mean, I don't know why they're sitting on a gold mine, right? I don't know why they're not.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're. I mean, I'm sure they have other things they're focusing on because we want them to. We want developers to do a lot of things. So, but it would be really cool if they brought back some of those classic Tales experiences for us.
I mean, I think they've showed a willingness to do that. We saw it with Vesperia, and after 10 years, they decided, well, we need to get this out to more people, and why not go back? There's still people that really would like to play some of those old games. Modernize the experience a little bit. Not we don't want to be playing PS1 type deals all the time, but well, as long as it's not mobile only, I think I'm fine with it.
Me too. And like you said, as long as they put in the quality of life things, like I think we're kind of in a society now where you just can't have like 45 minutes between save points. You just can't anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
Or where you have to leave on the like you have to be able to get up and do something when you need to be able to do it. So I mean they have to, I really think they have to put in quality of life things where you can save a lot more often, the old games, and then where you can fast forward some animations and like the battle animations and things like that get repetitive in the older games. Like we're just not in that kind of society where we have the time to, where we really have the time to sit there and watch those things anymore. We want the experience, but we also have other things to do more quickly, I think, than we used to. So
Absolutely. Like, yeah, you don't need to save like anytime necessarily. But yeah, every 15, 20 minutes would be nice. So at least have that ability to do that. I understand that the strategy of not having an anytime save function, but it's just not as feasible as it used to be.
Yeah, it's not practical. I don't want to have to tell my wife, oh, we can't go out to dinner right now because I can't get to a save. I have to get to a save or I'm going to lose all my progress. You know,
Yeah,
I don't want to. I don't want to have to do that.
or risk leaving the system idle for a few hours and coming back and
Right.
it's frozen or something. I guess
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it's certainly a
It
possibility.
used to happen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've all come back to the dead screen and like, oh.
I guess that's it. I guess I'm redoing this 3 hour dungeon.
Yay, that's exactly what I want. Now, you said you liked this game as one of your favorites, but it didn't have any spiders in it. So how could you like this game?
Man, that's why I play the Tale series, right? They don't have that many spiders. That's why I play it. They don't have any
But you
spiders.
played all the Trails games, and it's nothing but spiders.
Oh, yeah. That must tell you something about how good the story is from of the Trails games, then. Because I just can't deal with them. I can't deal with the spiders.
Trails wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't as grotesque spiders as they tend to come up with too.
And why do we have to get to like later parts in the Trails games, and all of a sudden you're just walking and a giant spider hangs down from a cloud? Like, you know what I mean? Like just out of nowhere. It's just ridiculous and disgusting.
It is ridiculous. And I'm very disappointed there was not more to frighten you in this game because it would have looked pretty cool. I mean, with the graphics in this game, like I said, there wasn't that much variety, so I guess that's what they went for. Just they had their build, and that's what they went with.
Yeah, they left out the spiders just for me. I'm glad they did.
That's exactly what it was.
I heard in a so I heard this because I've played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. I have Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Wii U. I haven't played it yet. Actually, it's in my backlog, but I've heard there's a lot of spiders in that game, and I heard there's like some scene where there's a whole bunch of them running down like a canyon or something. I don't know, but I'm already dreading that from whenever I look
Oh,
that up.
see, that's reason not to play it right there.
So I don't know about that one. The Xenoblade, they love the spiders too, as you remember.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels like with those, like if you're going, because there's a lot of caverns and stuff like that. That's where you expect giant spiders, right?
Yeah.
I don't mind if it's in place, like you said, like if they're starting to just hang from the air, there's nowhere so you can see their web attached to. It's like, come on, that's
Well, they
not.
were. I think they were from another plane or something. So I think that's how you're supposed to make sense of it.
Yeah,
Another
oh,
plane
that
of
because that makes sense, right? Another plane.
existence.
There's still spiders, yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
why
so
they
the two big questions. Let's just do it for this year then. I guess by default, there's no way this is not JRPG of the year.
Well, I mean, because you can't say. I don't think Ease 9 is JRPG of the year,
Hmm.
and probably not. I haven't played World Ends with You Neo, but just judging from its reception, it probably isn't.
Hmm.
And then the only thing I could see it competing with it maybe is the FF7, remake, the Intergrade, the DLC. I mean, that was really
Right.
that was really good, but I just think
That's
because
hard to
it's not
count. That.
it's hard to do,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's not like an entire. I guess you could say it's not an entire game. So I
Yeah.
mean, Tales of Arise, but the other thing is, what about Final Fantasy 14? I don't play that. I mean, I heard it's fantastic, and a lot of people love the different packages that come out for it. I mean, do you think it's possible that one of those would be JRPG of the year
So like
instead, or
Endwalker. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's certainly feasible, and I think anybody that's been allowed to log in and play it would probably say so. But I don't know. I like it's hard for me to even say that's a possibility just because of some of its limitations. And
yeah,
it was late. I mean, it just came out too, so that's got to factor in at least a little bit that most people couldn't play it and probably are not done with it by this point. I would guess. But it has to be at least in the running. So I mean, for me personally, you throw in there like Bravely Default 2 and Until They Arise 2. But that's just because I'm weird, I guess.
Well, I mean, Bravely Default 2, I also in my backlog. I mean, maybe I'll think differently after I play that. I don't know, but I would say Tales of Arise. I mean, it probably is JRPG of the year with some, it's overall a really great game, and then just with a variety of small complaints, but that don't keep it from being a great game, I would say.
I feel like even though I didn't love the game, it's still it for me because it almost feels like I'm nitpicking in reality.
It does. Yeah, I feel like I'm nitpicking too. The things we talked about, I feel like
Yeah,
I'm nitpicking.
for me, this is not like Final Fantasy 15 where there's major flaws with the
No,
experience.
yeah.
There are just little things that, as a longtime fan, I didn't care for, but doesn't mean they were wrong or bad. They were just different.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I feel like you kind of summed it up. We're kind of just nitpicking things that maybe we didn't like as much, but overall, just you really can't say like there were major things wrong with it or anything.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a technical achievement that I think is well placed, and maybe the next one will kind of take that formula to where it's better overall, more balanced. That they listen to the complaints and some of the things that we really didn't like about the game, and can make something even more spectacular.
I mean, I think so. I do hesitate about the remake Intergrade though. I feel like if that DLC was extended to be an even like, which of course it's just a DLC, but if it were extended to be a longer game and it was the way that it was, it would probably be JRPG of the. I mean, just because if you remember, it looks fantastic more than
Yeah,
anything, and also just the way it is very important for the story too, the way it connects things, and some of the things that I'm not going to say here that happen in the story are just really affect you emotionally and everything. And I feel like if that were expanded, it might be JRPG of the year. But just because I think just by virtue of the fact that it's just shorter, and kind of a bridge, you can't say that it is. But
I can completely agree with everything you said, and you're right. I mean, for what 4 or 5 hours tops, like you
why are you
could.
so fast at games?
Why are you so slow at games, sir?
I think I spent like 20 some hours on it.
It was 2 chapters.
I guess I just did a lot of stuff, and I don't know when I did all the Condor, whatever,
Okay.
Fortnite and stuff. I don't know, but
But I mean, it would need to be at least a full length game.
yeah.
I feel like. I mean, or at least something close to it. I just feel like that was too. It was incredible. I really liked it,
It
but
was incredible.
it would need a lot more to it to get to that rank. And I don't know. I don't know what they could have done more. They
Yeah,
hit
me neither.
they hit everything. So yeah, that was a lot of fun for sure. So where have you thought about where this falls in your like all time Tales rankings?
Uh, Probably it might be like third or fourth, I would say, or
Okay.
something. Like I've got Asperia as number one for me.
Okay.
I've got Tales of the Abyss is right up there next, and then I say probably Berseria, and then after that I think I put Arise. Yeah, I put Arise after that. So Arise
Okay.
just after Berseria, and then I got Graces because I really like that. Symphonia,
Hmm.
Zillia, Destiny, and then you start to go down there. You got Legendia, and then the bottom two um, that I have listed here are Zestiria,
Yeah.
um, and Tales of Symphonia 2.
Thou
Is
shall
on
not
it.
be named. Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, I have actually a Tales of Fantasia is just after Destiny. I have that.
Okay. Yeah, well, we absolutely agree on the bottom too, and
Yeah.
I know we talked about it before, but Linginia is down there at the bottom for me. But to your credit, you actually played it. I only played about an hour or two of it before I hated it, so I'm
What
sure.
Legendia you think?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I couldn't do the 2D, but yeah, it's
it's really good. You should give it another shot.
no, not gonna happen. But it's hard for me to put this in my top five, and it's not necessarily anything against Arise. I think it speaks volumes to, Abyss, to Vesperia, to Symphonia, to I loved Graces as well. I loved Exelia 1. I
Oh,
did
Zillia 2, I left that off. Yeah, but when Zillia, I meant the two together, actually, because I
okay.
like them
I
both.
didn't care for part 2 as much.
Okay.
It wasn't not my favorite. I did enjoy Hearts, even though it was very different, and of course it's only it's subtitled, so it has a different effect to it.
Okay.
But it was still very enjoyable. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily anything against this one. It just I just like those other ones a little bit better. And so yeah,
That
right
makes
outside
sense.
top
Yeah.
five. Yeah,
Um, I was thinking of
Berseria.
some
I'm
other.
sorry, Berseria would definitely be higher too.
Well, I know you really like Berseria, I think, right?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, like I played it twice, which is just not something that ever. It's rare for me to play a game twice.
I thought you just replayed Final Fantasy VII Remake.
That's different. It was on a different system.
Ah.
It was all upgraded and pretty, and of course that's a shorter game too. I mean, it's not a long experience. So
Well, for you.
well, for normal people,
Yeah.
yes.
I was like the only person I know that spent like 55 hours on remake or something like that.
I
I think it was something like that.
I can't. I mean, if you were going to do everything to platinum a game, sure, but just like a normal playthrough, that's just insane.
Yeah, I have to figure out. I don't really know what it is that I'm doing that's really slow. I mean, I do like to explore every corner of like every map, I guess, but I just maybe I'll try to really pay attention to what is it that I'm doing that makes this so much slower.
I don't know. I mean, it works for you. So that you still end up playing more games probably than I do. It's just different.
I guess, yeah. But I would like to play more games, so it would help me to play even more if I just didn't take so long. So,
It's hard when you get a little bit older. You got other obligations. That is life. Not as much
yeah,
time for
sometimes
video games.
you go through phases where sometimes you can play a couple hours, and then other phases where you're just really busy and you can lucky to get in, 20 minutes or
Oh
something. So,
gosh, exactly. Any? I feel like we didn't really spoil too much. Honestly, at the end, that we definitely talked about a few things here and there. But anything you need to kind of throw in there at the end of this thing?
I don't know. I thought the one thing we just didn't, I guess, talk about was really we didn't talk about the thorns very much, but
Yeah,
they being inherited from Naori and everything. But I guess that's not
I
too
mean,
much of a
we don't need to
spoiler.
play the game for people
Yeah.
either. I mean, if they've been listening this long, they played the game and they know kind of
Oh, that's
what.
true. Yeah, we don't need to talk about the thorns for
Yeah, I
people.
mean, I like that aspect of it and how Alvin eventually overcame it and was still able to hug her, even though it didn't matter. That was cool, but I like the way they tied that in there. That was evil and it made sense, right?
You must have like the toughest threshold for pain. Like the pain people feel when they touch her. They're like shown to be like literally destroyed, and he can touch even burning things and everything without like
Yes.
dying, and he can just like touch, Xion, he's being literally like electrocuted or whatever, he's fine. I don't know where
I don't
his
know.
threshold for pain comes from,
That's the power of love, dude.
but
They didn't say that. That'd have been really cheesy.
yeah, like Huey Lewis in the news coming in. Well, I shouldn't. That makes me feel real old.
That you just dated yourself, sir. That's
I did.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about though. That's okay.
I knew you would. Yeah.
Yeah, we're old guys. That's okay. But yeah, that's I feel like that was a good spoiler cast. We're not I don't we could sit here and discuss plot points and all that stuff, but I kind of feel like we hit all the big stuff and things we
I
liked
think
and
we
didn't
did.
liked.
Yeah, I think we did.
Very good. All right. Well, why don't you? I was going to say throw out your socials and tell people where they can get a hold of you, but you don't want that. That's not.
I don't really do that. That's not really me. But
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. I know we bug you a couple of times to talk about video games, and always enjoy having you on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun, dude.
thank you. I always have fun coming on, so I appreciate it.
Not a problem, dude. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this Sunday special. We hope you've enjoyed us chit chatting about Tales of Arise. We'll do it again here real soon. I'm not sure what game, but we'll talk here real soon. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will talk to you again here sometime soon. Jordan, would you mind telling the people how to end this thing?
All right, everybody, don't forget to get back out there. Level up.